Good evening and a happy new year to you all, and you're all welcome to this evening's webinar, which is being brought to you tonight by the Teagasc advisory staff here in County Mayo. My name is Brendan Gary and I work in Teagasc and Ballina, and tonight, for the next hour, I'm delighted to be your host for this webinar. Now, this evening's webinar is the first episode in a new 6-part series of webinars which will run throughout the month of January and for 2 weeks into February, each Tuesday night at 8 p.m. And the same link will work for each episode. Now, during the series, we will cover some of the key agricultural issues facing Irish farmers in 2024. Now, tonight, we kick off our series with the theme of sustainable farming practices. And as we know at this stage, Ireland needs to reduce its emissions from farming by 25% by 2030. So tonight, my colleague Enda Geoghegan from Teagasc Ballina, who is the Teagasc Climate Support Advisor for County Mayo, will set the scene and will tell us about the Signpost programme in operation throughout Teagasc. And later on, Gabriel Trayers, the FutureBeef Programme Advisor, will talk to Cathal Irwin, a Teagasc Signpost Programme and FutureBeef farmer who farms near Ballyhane outside Castlebar, on technology changes that he has made so far on his farm over the last few years and what his future plans are. So stay tuned for that interesting interview. Now, you, the viewers at home this evening, are being encouraged to engage with our panellists, and we ask you to put your questions into the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screens. And later this evening, the Teagasc Regional Manager, Vivian Silk from County Mayo, will put your questions live to our panellists here tonight. So please put your questions into the Q&A tab. As always, this webinar is being recorded and will be available to watch back on the Teagasc Mayo YouTube channel and indeed on the social media channels here in operation for County Mayo. So without further delay, I'll ask you, Enda, now to start sharing your presentation with us, and it's over to you now, Enda.
Thanks very much, Brendan. Can you see it there? You can?
We can, Enda, yeah. Thank you very much for that now.
That's great. Now, as Brendan said, Enda Geoghegan is my name. I'm based here in Ballina. I formerly was a dry stock advisor for over 20 years, and I am now the sustainability and climate change advisor for the region. And I suppose, look, as climate change is real, and every time we turn on the radio and television, even this evening, we seen on the headlines one of the first stories that it was the warmest year on record in the world in 2023, with average temperatures up, peaking at the dreaded 1.5%. Well, we're at 1.48. So it is getting very real. And I suppose, look, at a thing that farmers always ask, well, how is climate change impacting on your farming practices? And look, I suppose in 2023, more than any other year, we can see that it is having, we'll say, real impacts. We'll say flooding. We had flooding, we'll say, down in Cork. We had episodes of drought in the recent years. Back in 2018, we can all remember the drought that, we'll say, particularly affected, we'll say, the southeast of the country. We have floods there, December 2015, up around the Shannon and Athlone, severe flooding. And look, we have all these weather events. They're becoming very, I suppose, commonplace, if you'd like to say. Just to take a few of them there, we all remember Storm Ophelia in 2017. Then we have, we'll say, more recently, we'll say Storm Barra, all these storms. And look, it is a real thing, and it is something that's happening. 2010 and 11, we had the severe cold spells. 2009 and 10, it was the coldest winter for almost 50 years. Now, we'll say in 2023, it's likely to be the hottest year humanity has ever experienced. Well, that has actually been confirmed and has been reported on the news tonight. And it is the hottest year that has been on record. So climate change is real. For Ireland itself, we'll say 2023 was the warmest year on record. And if you look at, we'll say, over the last number of years, our temperatures has been rising, and for the first time, Ireland's average annual temperature rises above 11 degrees Celsius. 2023 saw the warmest June on record, but then it also saw the wettest March and the wettest July on record. So, with this increased temperature, we are getting more rainfall, we are getting more intense rainfall, and for the first time in 2023, 4 months of the year were within their top five warmest months on record. So that means we'll say the climate is getting warmer, but as it's getting warmer, it's also getting wetter. Now, I suppose, if we look at the drivers of climate change, and we can see the global mean temperature there from 1850 up to 1950. It was there was normal peaks and troughs there. It was fairly flat, though, you could say. But from about, we'll say, the mid 70s, you can say there, it's after increasing there. And if we look over at the next one here, and we look at the increased fossil fuels, you can see that increased fossil fuels and increased temperature, they're going hand in hand. So we'll say climate change is real. Fossil fuel has an awful lot to do with it. And we have this greenhouse effect. And I suppose the very easy way to, we'll say, explain the increase in temperatures around the planet is that the sun is still shining, but we'll say when it shines, the earth naturally reflects the heat away, but because of greenhouse gases and that, it can't get out into the atmosphere. So it's like a blanket around the earth, and it is causing increased temperatures. Now, I suppose when we talk about greenhouse gases, what do we really mean when we talk about greenhouse gases? So there's three main greenhouse gases, and the most relevant to agriculture is methane and nitrous oxide, and of course carbon dioxide. So these are the main three greenhouse gases that is concerning, we'll say, with agriculture. And when we're talking about it, you can see over the last number of years, we'll say, with an increase in livestock production, with an increase in fertilizer application, and also industry and transport. And we'll say industry and transport have a big part to play in climate change as well. And as you can see there, all these are attributing to the amount of greenhouse gases that's in our atmosphere. And we'll say, if you look at carbon dioxide there, there's a 45% increase since 1980. So, that's in most of our lifetimes, that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is after increasing by 45%. So, it is a big issue, and it is an issue that we should all be concerned about. Now, sources of Irish agriculture emissions. So, when we talk about agriculture, where do the emissions come from? When we talk about the, I suppose, the greenhouse gases, the biggest driver of greenhouse gases, we'll say, within the agriculture sector is enteric fermentation, which means, we'll say, the fermentation process, the digestive process that the animal goes through when she eats grass. The digestion of the grass, the production of gases, the production of methane gases is as a result of that. So that counts for 62.6%. Then you have, we'll say, soils. When we talk about agricultural soils, we talk about the fertilization and the production of fertilizer. That is another, we'll say, big emitter of emissions at 19.9%. So this is just to give you an idea where the emissions come from. So basically the biggest driver there is animals. Then you have manure management and fertilizer production, then the other two big areas there. Fuel composition there in agriculture is fairly small. If you went to the aviation sector, if you went to the, we'll say, transport sector, it'll be much greater than that. Now, how do we address and how do we reduce these emissions? This is what we call the MAC curve. And basically, this is all the actions that we can do to reduce the emissions. Now, there's 14, 15 actions there. They're being added to all the time and they're being refined and developed. But if you look at it quickly there's an awful lot of these actions that people are doing already and that people are, we'll say, benefiting from as well. So, like, if you look at one of the biggest ones there, the dairy EBI, so that's actually the breeding of your dairy cows. So better breeding will reduce emissions because less cows will produce more milk. So better breeding, reduced age at finishing. All these will be putting money in your pocket. So anything above that broken line up there that you can see is a benefit, and anything above the line will be a cost. So one of the biggest costs there that people are finding there is the LESS, and that's the low emission slurry spreading. So obviously there's a cost with buying machinery for that. So that is a cost. The other ones down here, fertilizer formulation. The changes in fertilizer formulation is going to be, we'll say, a gain for the agricultural industry because they're refining it all the time. They're making it more efficient, and hopefully that less fertilizer will produce more results. So technology is there to reduce emissions. The biggest one there, and one of the biggest ones there, as I was saying about fertilizer production, and that is the use of protected urea. And protected urea reduces emissions by about 8%. Now, while it's reducing emissions by 8%, it's also actually reducing the cost of the nitrogen that you're buying by 20%. So it's good for the environment, it's good for emissions, but it's also good for your pocket. Okay? The LESS, so that's the low emission slurry spreading, as we were saying. It reduces the nitrogen requirement by about 20 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare. So basically, it reduces the amount of nitrogen you need to buy. So again, good for the environment, good for your pocket. And it reduces the cost by about 25%, 25 euro per hectare. So again, we'll say it's a benefit. Clover, multi-species sward, it fixes 50 kilos of nitrogen per hectare per year, and it reduces the cost by about 60 euro per hectare. Now, this, an awful lot of organic farmers will say will be using red clover silage, but amongst conventional farmers, there's an awful lot of people beginning to look at multi-species swards and red clover silage. So it is an area that there's a lot of interest in, and indeed over the next year or 18 months, we'd be hoping here in the region to have more open days and demonstrations around the use of clover and multi-species swards. And here then another one for anyone that's finishing cattle. Obviously, if you finish cattle, you're going to have the less cattle, or you're going to have, we'll say, the cattle in the shed for a less amount of time. So obviously, if you have them in the shed for less amount of time, you're going to be feeding them less meal. So it's more efficient. There's not 20, 30 bullocks hanging around for an extra month producing nothing but gas and costing you money by feeding them. Now, when we're talking about all these technologies and we'll say options to reduce emissions, we have developed 12 steps to reduce emissions on your farm. And these are carried out at the workshops, which I'll be talking about now in a minute. But basically, we will say when we're talking about the 12 steps, we're talking about simple, everyday things that you can do to reduce emissions on your farm. Now, there's a 12 steps fact sheet for every farming sector out there. So, what we're looking at here is we're looking at one for suckler cows. There is one for sheep, there's one for dairy, tillage, there's ones for people, dairy, calf to beef, and finishing cattle. So, every sector is covered, we'll say, with a 12 steps. So, these are simple actions that people can do. So, it goes from using protected urea, applying lime, taking soil samples, using LESS, reducing your chemical fertilizer by 10 kilos per hectare, which people are doing anyway, because if you're using soil samples, you are going to find that maybe you don't need that extra bag of 18612. Maybe you can cut back a bit. Other things there are improving animal health, improve suckler herd quality through better breeding. Anyone that's in the SCEP program will be doing that anyway. So an awful lot of these actions, people can do them very simply, and they're having an effect on the emissions, but they're also having a positive effect on your pockets as well. So when we talk about the Signpost Advisory Programme, what we're talking about, I suppose, what is the programme? The Signpost Advisory Programme, it's available to all farmers and it's a free service. So basically, it's an enhanced advisory and training support that is provided, we'll say, through workshops. So basically what we're doing throughout the county is we're doing workshops. We're inviting people in for about 2 hours. And when we get people in, we sit down, we go through, we'll say, the whole mentality of why climate is important, it's affecting us, how it's affecting us, how it's affecting the farm. But then what we look at is we look at the 12 steps. When we look at the 12 steps, we identify maybe 3 or 4 steps that people can implement on their own farm. When we get the 3 or 4 steps that people can implement on their own farm, we have an online sustainability tool which is called AgNav, and that has been developed by Teagasc Ballina and ICBF. So basically what AgNav is, it identifies the carbon footprint for your own farm based on the sustainability survey that you would have completed in your Ballina audit. So every farm that's in Ballina will have a carbon footprint for their farm. We can input to 4 actions that you pick in the workshop, and we can see how this has an impact on your carbon footprint. So this is very important, and AgNav is available to everybody using their ICBF username and login details. So it's agnav.ie, and if you go onto it and use your ICBF username and login details, you can get onto it. So basically, why should you sign up for the Signpost program and the workshops? I suppose is to see how your farm is performing, to see how you can reduce emissions, to see how you can improve the efficiency of your farm. Many of the actions are a win-win situation. They're good for your profit, they're good for your farm, but also they're good for the environment. Engaging with climate actions will present opportunities for your farm. And as I said, this service is free of charge to Teagasc clients and non-Teagasc clients. So it's free of charge to everybody. We will be conducting workshops throughout the county. And the consumer is demanding, we'll say, quality food production, and that is something there that is very important and very important going into the future. So, just, I suppose, what do you expect from the program? It's a dedicated climate action and sustainability advisory team, we'll say, within the region. So at the moment, it's myself. We'll be doing workshops and training opportunities about, we'll say, climate change and emissions. We'll be working with you on a one-to-one basis and in groups to implement these positive changes on your farms. We'll be having, in conjunction with Gabriel and the FutureBeef and the likes of Cathal that's on their farmers, we'll be having open days and we'll say events to demonstrate the technologies that's implemented on the farm. So, look, as we have this page here that people fill up on the workshop. They pick 3 items out of it there, and then we use this to look at their AgNav and how to reduce the carbon footprint. We send them out this page here, which shows the reduction on their carbon footprint versus the 2018 figures. And what we're finding is, on average, people are talking about 5-6%. This one is a particularly high one here. He was using a lot of 18612 and he cut it out using protected urea. He was spreading slurry in the autumn. He went to spreading slurry in the spring using the dribble bar, and he also cut the amount of fertilizer that he was spreading on the farm by about 10%. So by doing these 3 actions, he cut his carbon footprint by 10.6%, which would be one of the higher options, but on average, people are finding, we'll say, between 4 and 6%. So Lucas, just something that has been launched today, and I'll quickly go through it here. It's actually the new Teagasc FBD Environmental Sustainability Awards for 2024. And it's just been launched today. And the awards aim to promote environmentally sustainable farming and highlight the progress the farmers are making to lighten the load on the farming while continuing to produce high quality food in a profitable manner. So the environment is very important, emissions is very important, but also food security. We have to still continue to produce food in an environmentally sustainable manner and in a profitable way. So it recognises farmers who are operating in a sustainable, profitable farming system while incorporating the latest scientific developments. So that's the why, the what, and we'll say people, the prizes that's here. There's a prize fund of about €30,000. So there's 9 prizes of 2,500 plus a 7,500 top up to the overall award winner. So the overall award will be presented to the farmer who is judged to be farming in the most environmentally sustainable manner, and they will be actively engaging in practices to reduce gaseous emissions and improve water quality, enhance biodiversity, and improve soil and carbon, while also demonstrating high levels of efficiency. So there is going to be awards through all sectors and through all farming, we'll say, categories. So there is going to be enterprise awards for, we'll say, dairy, beef, suckler. So all these categories will be in it. There will be a best of, we'll say, whatever category will be awarded 2,500, and then there will be a 7,500 top up. How do you apply? It's open to all farmers, whether you're a Teagasc client or not, operating in the Republic of Ireland that meet the criteria below. So the farmers must be farming a minimum of 1 hectare and applicants should be actively engaging in the environmental actions to reduce emissions on their farm. Now, Brendan, we will be putting up, maybe on the Teagasc Facebook page, we'll be putting up a QR code for people to apply for this. So the application period is the 9th to the 29th, the 9th of January, which is today, to the 29th of February 2024. There will be shortlisting then in March, and finalists will be notified in April. There'll be videos on the farms of the finalists. The judging period will be during the summer in 24, and the awards night will be on the 1st of October. And then there will be farm walks on the category winners throughout 2025. So it's just a good opportunity there for us to show what Irish agriculture is doing, we'll say, in terms of emissions. And Irish agriculture is doing a lot in terms of emissions. We just need to get it out there and put that, we'll say, nice publicity on it, that we are doing a lot, and people should get, we'll say, the merits and the accolade for doing it. So, Brendan, as I say, we'll be putting up a QR code on the Teagasc Facebook page, and it'll be also on the public website and Teagasc public website. So that's it, Brendan.
Well, that's great, Enda. Thank you for a brilliant presentation. And indeed, at this stage now, Enda, I'll ask you just to stop sharing your presentation, and I'm going to call on Gabriel and Cathal there to come on. And indeed, I suppose, look at you, the viewers at home this evening. We have a lot of online viewers are being encouraged to put your questions in there to the Q&A tab, and we will pick them up after both Cathal and Gabriel are finished their conversation. So over to you now, Cathal and Gabriel.
Thanks, Brendan, and thanks, Cathal, for coming on the call. And I suppose Enda has explained very nicely how the whole Signpost programme, and it is a programme by Teagasc that's leading climate change amongst the Irish agriculture and farming sector. And within that umbrella of Signpost, there's 100 demonstration farms across all the sectors, so farmers can go and see exactly what is happening on these farms. The FutureBeef Programme is within that umbrella. We have 22 farmers, suckler farmers specifically, that are working within that programme with the overall objective maybe is to obviously to increase profit, but also to increase profit in an environmentally friendly way, as the way Enda has outlined as well. And it's not necessarily about having more, it's about being more efficient with the numbers that you have, and we'll get Cathal to explain what he's doing on the farm as a result of that. Also, you have Michael Biggins and Niall Biggins out in Shrule. They're a participant in that FutureBeef programme. And maybe on the other dry stock side of it, you have the Rowans and Claremorris on the dairy calf to beef. So they're all under the Signpost programmes, and we'll be having farm walks, which you'll be encouraged to attend to over the next couple of years. So, as I said, we're just going to go through the actions that maybe Cathal has adopted on the farm, and maybe the plans for the future. And as Enda said, rightly said, they're all win-win actions. There's nothing really new in all these actions. They've been around a long time, but maybe with a profitability angle on them. But they are also important when it comes to reducing your emissions. So it is a win-win. These actions are all win-win for farmers. And there's no silver bullet that one action is going to solve all. It's going to be a combination of all little actions that's going to lead to that 25%. So maybe starting to Cathal, maybe we know you're farming outside Castlebar, but maybe you could describe maybe your farm and farm system and type and land type and all that.
Thanks very much, Gabriel. I suppose, look, like a lot of the land around Castlebar, you could describe it as heavy or very heavy land. We have a small farm and just part-time suckler farm, and working full-time off farm. I keep about 20 cows. It goes up and down a bit depending on culling rate at the end of the year, but I try to keep around 20 cows. And I suppose since I started the programme now, we used to sell stores at around 18 months. And since I started the programme now, we're just looking at, I suppose, profitability and things like that. And I'm trying to bring everything to finish and put a bigger focus on grass, I suppose, really, and drive the farm on. I suppose my thing, I have a young family, so I'm working full time. I don't necessarily want any more land or anything. I just want to optimize what I have and do it in the best way possible, from, I suppose, my pocket to the way we run, to the environment, everything, just like, I suppose, like anyone really,
Yeah. And I suppose, like, I was reading there recently, like the average suckler herd is 18 cows. So you're the average size herd. And a lot of farmers maybe on the call are thinking, like, climate change doesn't affect me, or I can't really make an impact on climate change. And as an average farmer, sized farmer, how do you feel about that, Cathal?
But you're like, yeah, like, obviously you feel that you can't really have an impact. We're a small little farm in the west of Ireland in a big world, but, like, I suppose we can't all take that attitude. We all have to try and do our bit, no matter what it is. And, I don't think anyone's, to be honest, I don't think farmers want to. I think they always want to try the right thing, because we're out in the environment every day, and no one wants to go out and, do the wrong thing, really. We're trying to do the right thing, I think, in the whole,
Yeah, and I was even seeing there, one of the local processor has a new pilot project where farmers are going to get rewarded for reducing their emissions by up to 10 cent a kilo. So it's probably something that, and I think Enda alluded to, that consumers will look for this as well.
Probably, to be fair, yeah. Like, we can everything carbon seems to be in everything that we're doing now, and it's because it really has been a change in the last number of years, and sometimes it's hard to get your head around it, but it's here, like, and we have to embrace it, really.
Yeah, it's a new challenge, and dry stock farmers were always used to challenges in the past, but I suppose the climate change is the new challenge now. I would say, just delving into the actions you've taken on board, we'll say, and protected urea is a low hanging fruit, we'll say, but farmers may be afraid of it, and maybe not using it. Are you using it, Cathal, and maybe how you found it? Yeah.
I was using, let's say, unprotected urea in the shoulders, well, particularly in spring, maybe for about 3-4 years there. It was a good, I suppose, thing to get grass moving in let's say, March time-ish, Then I suppose protected urea came. The downside, obviously, is the smallest bag you can get is 375 kilos. I have a small farm. I have in paddocks, 1.6 acre paddocks, so what you're doing is you're bucketing out fertilizer. It's not ideal, but it's a small scale farm. It is what it is. Last year I moved over to totally unprotected urea, so I suppose, to put it in real terms, in 2022 I grew 8 ton of dry matter per hectare on the grazing ground, or averaged over the farm, and last year I grew 10, and that was using protected urea. Now, it wasn't down to protected urea, it was grassland management and all that, but it definitely didn't have an adverse effect, and it probably helped me, to be fair.
Yeah, protected urea, what does it mean, like, for the farmers that are listening?
Well, look, I suppose, what is it? I suppose it's a higher concentration of nitrogen, or is the nitrogen in it, but it's less ammonia leakage to the atmosphere as opposed to can. And I suppose, look, ultimately, I know it's up to 20% saving or more in your pocket, so it makes sense as well. But
yeah,
you can spread it out. The new one now, you can spread it all year round throughout the whole grazing seasons of summer, so it makes sense. Like,
it's a win-win, as we were saying earlier. Yeah. And maybe delve into your soil fertility. You took soil samples, and again, there's nothing new in all this, but like, how you fix regards to soil fertility, or how have you worked on it?
Look, I suppose, building the P's and the K's for the last couple of years, like, if the land is, the land, you've been out in a many times, Gabriel, the land is, it's average to fair land. Some of it's very poor. In 2022, I broadcast lime, contractor broadcast lines all over the whole lot. I think I put out 75 ton of lime that year. I think around the farm, I think around 69% is index 3 for K, 73% is a pH of 6.2 or greater. I think around 86% is P. 86% is index 3 or 4 for P. So we're getting there. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. It takes time.
And what does that mean? Like, you're heavily stocked on the grazing platforms. You have to grow a lot of grass. So by having the correct soil fertility, you're getting results from the fertilizer that you're applying. Do you know what I mean? That's the whole reason of building your soil fertility. And maybe for farmers that are out there, a simple tip is to get a couple of soil samples taken. €25 will cover 4 hectares. It takes the guessing out of the type of fertilizer that you're applying. And if you are low if you're down low on the P's and K's, maybe use the likes of a higher compound with like 8612 that has higher P's and K's, and maybe use a bit of protective urea with it. We're not saying apply more fertilizer, but maybe switch from the lower P's and K's to the higher P's and K's if you're at a low index. But without soil samples, you're totally guessing, So it is a good practice to do. And we'll say, if you look at the 12 steps, like what Enda mentioned, the first 6 steps is all about kind of fertilizer use and getting your grass right. And I suppose slurry has a big part to play there as well, and applying it to low emissions. How are you managing your slurry? What have you changed over the last couple of years regards to slurry? Are you putting it on earlier in spring, or?
Yeah, I'm trying to get it out earlier in spring. Look, to be honest, I've had a real pinch point on winter housing, so some years I'd be waiting for to get, I suppose, the slurry spreading season open and a dry spell, and I'd be going out early in January or early mid-February with slurry just to get empty tanks to try and get through till spring. And then, you have a full tank at the end of whatever, April, May, and spreading it maybe in summer. So look, it really wasn't good use of slurry. All you're doing is greening up grass in early spring, and you're not really getting any growth, and all the goodness has gone out of it, washed out of it. So I suppose like a simple thing to try and do now is watching the slurry. If we have to go once we get into the, I suppose, the slurry spreading season, maybe take a couple of loads out and go and save it for March, really. Save it and go out with the low emission slurry spreading. Save it for March when we get the bang to the buck. And like what I did last year, I went out protected urea then after the slurry, and it worked fine, I didn't go any P's or K's on the silage ground.
And like I mentioned at the start, like it's all about being more efficient with your animals. So that's getting good animal performance, specifically off grass because it's cheap. We'll say, what have you implemented as regards to grassland management? I know you mentioned paddocks there. Maybe just explain to people what you've done, and like you're farming one main block there, maybe the size of it and how many cows and calves you're keeping on that bit of ground.
So like I took over the farm in 2015, and we used to run maybe 14 cows over the whole lot, and they had the run of the whole lot of land for the summer. I remember going back, we hadn't the stocking rate, and, grassland management, just, we were lots of topping. I remember cattle going into 2 foot of grass in June, and lying on it, and that's what you were left with all summer. So now to give you an idea, there's about 20 odd acres of grazing ground the main grazing ground that I have, maybe 20, 23, depending on. I have 11 paddocks in it. I would run on average 20 cows, 20 calves, a bull maybe not. He might be pulled at that stage. And last year I had 20 cows, 20 calves, and 10 store heifers on it.
On 20 acres, yeah.
On 20 acres, and they were in 11 paddocks, and they were doing about, let's say, 2 to 3 days in each paddock, and on the go again. And it worked a treat, to be honest with you. I grew lots of really good quality grass. And, it was a tough year, but, it worked well.
And are you trying to get out early? Like, you have a heavy farm. When can you get out to grass? Like, I suppose as a program and as Teagasc advisors, we're always telling farmers to get out early to grass. Like, what's your approach there?
I suppose, what can I say? I have 15 weanlings out at the moment, so I let them out last Saturday, and I leave them out for the week. Look, the silage ground we have isn't great. The ground is questionable any time of year, really. But look, I have heavy covers that didn't get grazed last back end, so the ground conditions are there now. So I'm clearing off grass because I'm thinking of slurry. When the slurry comes, I might get another 2 weeks, in February or March before the slurry goes on. So I don't want to be putting slurry on last year's dead grass. I want to try and clean it off as best I can.
But so, you're flexible in your approach. You're prepared. Obviously, we'll have to rehouse. Like you don't mind doing that.
No. You might rehouse, I suppose, like between now and May, you'll be in and out 5-6 times, no problem.
Yeah. Okay.
If it works, if you can get it.
Yeah, and I suppose every day they're out. I know that there's a figure of €2 per livestock unit saving per day. Okay, January is very, very early, even for someone on the east side. But like you're grabbing the opportunity, and I suppose, as Enda said earlier, the weather has changed so much. It's not the seasons have changed so much. You kind of nearly have to grab the opportunities when they arise, whether it's February or whatever. It's not your typical spring, summer, autumn, winter anymore, really, is it? Like, you just grab it.
Like last year was January, February, we had the real dry weather, and I didn't let them out, and I regretted it.
Yeah.
And I said there was no way I was doing it this year. I should have had them out.
Yeah.
But so I said, just go with it now, and sure, look, we'll see how we go. And if the weather turns, they'll be in straight away. Like.
Yeah. So like. They're the first 6 steps. So like we're really talking protected urea, taking soil samples, and maybe making more use of grass. And I know before we finish the grass, you kind of walk your farm. I know you're measuring, but you kind of walk your farm weekly as well, just to kind of make sure that you have the right type of, your cattle are going into not too heavy covers, and you're taking out covers for bales and so on and so forth like that to control grasses. As we know, grass is the hardest thing we can control on farms at times.
Yeah.
So they're the kind of the easy steps there. So and maybe kind of moving into the more difficult steps to be more efficient with our stock is the breeding. And maybe explain kind of what type. You have 20 cows. Like what's their makeup? And maybe what's your makeup? What are the objectives of your suckler herd? Like what do you aim for?
I suppose. I'm trying to get the heaviest weanling I can, get as much live weight gain at grass without nuts off mother's milk. The predominant cow type that I have is Simmental. I know they can get a lot of stick and all this, but I suppose we all have our favorites, and that's just a breed that I like, and I see a lot of positives to them. They're not, everything isn't positive, but there is a lot of positives to them. For me, I'm trying to, I suppose something you've been encouraging me to do. Originally, I was calving in November, December, and now I've pulled forward to January. I'll probably pull forward to another month again, so calf them in February, March. And I suppose something that you've always been on to me, calf as close to grass as possible, and I suppose don't be feeding them cows good quality silage, and make them work a little bit harder in the shed. So I suppose the type of
and go back to efficiency, Cathal, like your 20 cows, I presume you want 20 calves.
That's
every year.
The number one, absolutely, yeah. That's number. It doesn't happen every year. You can have a bad run of it. It's luck, and a bit of luck and a bit of management.
But if you come back then to be more efficient with the herd that you have, like the national average is 0.8, roughly 0.8 calves per cow per year. With 20 herds, that's 16 calves. Like that's 4 calves less than what you were getting out of your 20 cows. So that's reducing your emissions. You're being more efficient. By each cow is producing something, and she has to. And I suppose you can operate a fairly strict culling policy then as a result. If she doesn't do that, like what is your kind of culling policy?
So I culled, I think, 5 this year. Look, I like anyone, docility number one. If you're a young family and I'm not going to get hurt by an animal if I can avoid it. So if I see something I don't like their behavior, they're gone. Docility number one, fertility number 2, milk, feet, all that types of things. Obviously sections, and the animals that have sections gone. So I'll pull the bull. I'll put the bull out for a certain length of time, and I will pull him then. And whatever is in, and whatever is out is out. And last year I had a high out rate because the weather was really tough. And I had some lovely cows that I culled, but I said I'm not going into April calving, and that was it.
Yeah, and you do operate you calved all your cows in 11 weeks. Like, what are the big advantages of a system like that? And I suppose you have to when you're a part-time farmer. Like, how do you do that, Cathal?
I suppose you just be strict on your dates, number one.
Yeah.
And I personally think, I'm not selling weanlings because I'm trying to bring them on further. But I love an even bunch of cattle in the pen. It's great. You hate to have 10 strong ones and 1 weak one. That 1 weak one is going to get bullied hard, and there's no drive, and so I think there's a lot of sense to just a compact calving.
And I suppose a part of that is having enough heifers coming in. Like, we'll say, how do you? What do you look for in a heifer, or what kind of heifers are you selecting?
Well, I suppose, I've been buying heifers up to this. If I look back through my herd, most of them are actually bought in. So I've switched over now I've switched to a Simmental bull because I want to try and breed my own replacements. What do I look for? I said I like the Simmental cow. I like a maternal animal. I like. I'm not into, let's say, these big U-grade cows. I'm into calving at 2 years old. I like a milky cow. So just all the sensible things. Breed a good cow and put a good bull on her. And that's keep it simple.
You mentioned calving at 2 years of age, a contentious topic in itself, and it's probably something you could have in a full webinar. Like, only 24% of all suckler men will calve at 2 years of age. But why do you think? And it's probably one of the biggest levers a farmer can pull. It's a hard sell, but it's one of the biggest levers a farmer can pull in reducing their greenhouse gas emissions. The other ones are all small incremental, whereas at calving 2 years of age can be up to 8% reduction. How does it work for you, Cathal?
To be honest, I took over the farm from my father. He always calved at 2 years of age, or thereabouts. It might be 26 months, it might be 27 months, but between 24 and 27 months. I'll be honest, I like it. I wouldn't dream of buying a heifer calving at 3. The because in my mind they're factory animals and they've too much condition. I wouldn't. A 2-year-old. I try not to get greedy. I got a little bit greedy this year. I know I'm going to suffer it, but I generally would put an Angus bull on them. Don't get greedy. You've got a live calf on the ground. You have a lovely little, heifer who's right into the system. Look after her well after she calves. Get her out to grass as quick as you can, and give her the chance to come back into heat. And she'll reward you. Like I've a cow there at the minute, and I calved her down as 24 months, and she's standing now at 750 kilos. She's a weapon. She's massive, but it didn't affect her growth in any shape or form.
Maybe that's one of the fears farmers have, that they get stunted, and you found it hasn't happened in your farm.
No, I wouldn't go calving a tree. There's nothing that could bring me to go calving a tree. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. Okay. So you're selecting the right heifer from the right mothers. Putting an easy calving sire on them, like an Angus, like you're saying. So at least they're producing an animal rather than waiting 3 years and producing nothing. Profit wise, again, win-win. It's a good thing. Are you using AI, or what's your approach to that? Or
yeah, well, the heifers did always use AI. So you'd have maybe a terminal bull for the cows or whatever, and I'd always use AI for the heifers.
And how do you manage that, being a part-time farmer?
Sometimes I'd synchronize, sometimes I'd use PRIDs, sometimes I'd be just watching them. It depends on the year and how many I was going to do. PRIDs are great. They can be very efficient with your time. I've used them in the past, and I've been quite happy with them. A little bit more costly, but still a lot cheaper than, going out having to buy a heifer,
Okay. And you mentioned changing your system, and like, I suppose you were calving the way probably maybe an outside pair of eyes are looking at you. You're calving November, December. Your shed isn't probably fit for purpose, and it's put a lot of pressure on you yourself as well. And now you're moving to spring calving, but you intend to finish, like you mentioned there. You have a semental bull that you'll keep replacements of, maybe sell some good surplus heifers. But your bulls will not be saleable as weanlings. So what's your plan for them?
Well, I started under 16-month bulls last year. It was my first year. Again, everyone had told me don't do it, but I was very happy with it, and I was actually amazed at the drive of them. So that's the road I'm going to with the semental bulls. So definitely, I'll finish them myself.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a system. It's not that we're pushing everyone into the six, but on a heavy farm, it keeps your stocking rate up.
Oh, yeah.
Those will never see grass again. So it kind of suits your type of farm. Yeah. And we'll say. What is your plan for the next 5 years, Cathal? Like, say, regards to, like, with a lot of talk about sustainability, and what does that mean for you? Like,
I suppose, look, sustainability. I want to do the right thing by the environment, and there's no question. I think most farmers are the same as that, but I want to do the right thing by myself as well. I want to put up another shed, and I've planned permission in and Townsend to do that. I want to finish all my own stock. I want to breed my own replacements. I don't want any more cattle. I don't want any more land. I just want to optimize what I have and run it as efficiently as possible. Okay. And that's really it, and just run just get a nice little farming system set up and run it efficiently and just keep it spinning then every year without too much, of my own personal time or family time taken away.
Or personal money, your own personal money either. Maybe let the farm survive for itself. Yeah. I think that wraps it up nicely, Brendan.
Thanks very much, Gabriel. Indeed, thanks very much to Cathal there as well for that insight into a system there. So at this point, I suppose we're just going to be just handing over to Vivian there. I just have a short little poll there I think has been running there. So farmers and viewers online there can continue to vote on that. We're looking that we just had 2 questions there that we asked our viewers. Would you consider using protected urea in 2024? And 84% of our viewers have indicated that they would. And indeed, we asked you also as well, are many of you using the low emission slurry spreading techniques such as the dribble bar or indeed the trailing shoe? And 46% of you said you were, and 54% of you said you weren't. So there's still time there to vote on that. So over to you now, Vivian, there for some questions to our panelists, Enda, Cathal and Gabriel.
Thanks, Brendan, and thanks to Cathal very much for coming on this evening. The rest of us are it's part of our job, but Cathal, you're giving up your time, so thanks for that. A couple of questions come in there on the Q&A section. There's still time to type in a couple of more as we're asking a few here. So, Enda, I'll go to you first. You mentioned the AgNav there towards the end of your presentation. Can a farmer access the AgNav themselves from their own laptop or home computer?
Yeah, if to go into on the Google search, just type in agnav, and it's agnav.ie. So when they go into that, if they have their ICBF username and password, that'll gain them access into the agnav there, and there they can just on the three options there that we were talking about the LESS slurry, about the reduction in fertilizer, and about the change in the types of fertilizer. They can have a look at it there and how that impacts on their climate, on their carbon footprint. But the only thing is that they do need to be in board BIA.
Okay, quality assured, yeah.
They need to be quality assured for that to be available there at the moment. Now that will change later on, but at the moment they have to be quality assured, Vivian.
Okay, thanks, Enda. While I have you there, Enda, you mentioned the workshops, and you did a lot of them last year in conjunction with our acres course and so on. And if someone wants to go to attend a workshop in the next couple of weeks, how do they go about doing that, and where do they find information about them?
Yeah, well, number one, they can, we'll say, just contact our local Teagasc office, and there is application forms in all the reception areas in the Teagasc offices. They can contact me directly, or they can register also on the Teagasc public website. And these workshops will be rolling them out again during the year in, we'll say, locations throughout the county. So we'll say the likes of Belmullet, the likes of Ballinrobe, but also we'll say if there's enough people, we'll say in smaller areas, like we'll say, for example, in Kermakeedy or Swinford, we can arrange workshops out there as well. So basically, they will be available in your area, and if you want one, just get in contact with your local Teagasc office.
Okay, thanks, Enda. Switching over to Gabriel there, and Cathal maybe for a couple of minutes. Cathal, in terms of you mentioned grassland management quite a bit as you were talking. Have you done much reseeding the last number of years, or how are you getting on with that?
Yeah, I've nearly the whole farm reseeded, to be honest with you. Look, I suppose, why did I go reseeding? I just wanted more grass in the shoulders of the year, and I wanted better types of grass, to be fair. Look, yeah, I know people might say it might be the most sustainable thing to do, and but I just wanted to grow better grass, and I wanted the animals just to get the thrive off it, and that was my sort of rationale for doing it.
Okay. And any preferred method? Was it direct drilling, or was it ploughing, or how did you manage it?
We just dist and sometimes broadcast seed onto it, or we might one pass system sometimes. It depends on, let's say, whoever I could get at the time, or whether we do it ourselves or something like that, or do it in conjunction with a contractor sometimes as well. So this seemed to work fine, to be honest.
It has also helped your silage quality a good bit too, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. It has.
Yeah. Like what kind of results are you getting?
So, like, reseeded all the silage ground in 22, and the year before now, okay, I cut it in a different time of year, but in 22, I cut the silage on the 26th of May, and I had 68 DMD silage. Last year, it was reseeded ground, and I cut it on the 15th of May, and it was 76 DMD silage. And, like, the difference is night and day. It's night and day, to be honest with you.
Okay, and other questions that's coming in there. Either Cathal or Gabriel can handle this one. Would you consider red clover for a silage crop? Or are you happy enough with the grassland mix?
I'd love to be able to do red clover, but the ground is not good enough.
Okay.
Yeah. And I suppose just following that, Vivian, I have like a farmer in Roscommon, Shane Keaveney, similar to Cathal, did put in red clover, but he'd have a little bit more drier ground and to feel on its own away from the farm, and he put it in last year. So it is an option on farms. Again, it depends on the land type that you have, but he's getting great results from his silage quality this year. Was up in 79 DMD at 16.9% protein. So it is an option, but you have to be careful where maybe it might be located. Yeah.
And just in terms of red clover, because it's pretty new, I suppose, it's fair to the world, Gabriel, in terms of dry stock farmers, Can it be grazed earlier on in the year or towards the end of the year, or is it just a silage crop?
It's just a silage crop. Yeah, and I suppose farmers that are sowing it prefer it to be a silage crop because you just have maybe issues with bloat if you start to graze it. But we'll say the likes of Shane there put it in last April, got it in the window there, even though it was wet, and he got 3 crops off it. Crop even out at the end of September, which yielded high quality silage. But it's a crop that will grow. It's a red clover will grow a silage crop without nitrogen, without bagged nitrogen or fertilizer. So all it needs is slurry or P and K in a bag form, but you can grow without nitrogen and you can get 3 crops a year. So it could be an option if you have a dry farm, definitely. And we will have open days. Shane Keevan, he's not far, he's just outside Ballina. He was at an open day on the 14th of June where you'll be able to go and see it this year. So it can be an option, but maybe the likes of Cathal is right. It probably might be an option where he is located.
And is there any issues with making bales out of it in terms of preservation, or is it fairly straightforward?
It needs a wilt, yeah. It needs a 2-day wilt, but Shane is making bales off it, so he cuts it obviously in a very dry, cuts it a little bit higher than you would silage because you want it to regrow. So he will wilt it for 2 days. It needs a good wilt. So you need good weather. You need 3 good periods of good weather during the course of the year, which maybe could be a challenge in the west of Ireland.
Yeah, the way it's coming, yeah. And just another question that's coming in there for you, Cathal. In terms of the new replacement index, the new index published by the ICBF just before the Christmas, did that affect your herd as a group, or did it break down to individual cows, or have you looked at it?
It did, yeah. No, it did affect me. Yeah, like some of the cows dropped. I suppose I dropped maybe 5-10% on my overall index. I know my bull dropped from a replacement of 157 to 112. So yeah, look, yeah, sometimes it can be a bitter pill, but like I suppose I'm trying to look at the bigger picture maybe as well, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, but your Eurostar is still €122. He's still in the top 10%, whereas you still have a very functional cow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
Okay. And have you used any six semen, Cathal?
I have, yeah. I've used it mainly on cows and mixed success, to be honest with you. Mixed success. I didn't have any success with it this year. I maybe used it on 3 or 4 cows and none of them kept to it. The year before it did work for me on cows. So it's just, it can be, I suppose, hit and miss, with it. I've used it on heifers. Sometimes it's nice when a heifer has a heifer on her first calf. It can be just a smoother road, and that's worked well in the past, I found. But the cows, mixed success is the best way to put it.
Okay. I think from the bit I know about it, they recommend to use it on heifers because they're under less pressure, they're not rearing a calf and so on. So maybe that's something to think about for 2024. Yeah. Just one final question, Enda, for you there, before we wrap it up. What is the average dry stock farmer, what can the average dry stock farmer do to reduce their carbon footprint? In a couple of sentences.
Yeah, a couple of sentences. I suppose the tree, as Gabriel called the protected urea, the low hanging fruit. We're talking about protected urea is one option. So if to change some of the fertilizer based on the soil sample results, so if to change some of the fertilizer over to protected urea based on their soil sample results, most people will say lower in their compound mixes. So if to go with protected urea, use low emission slurry spreading in the spring, and based on the soil sample results, most people will be reducing the amount of fertilizer they're putting out in their farm anyway. If they use them 3, we'll say options there, potentially they can, we'll say, reduce their carbon footprint on their farm by between 4 and 6%. Now, some farms it will be more, some farms it will be less, but that is the rough run-of-the-mill quick thing that they can do. Them 3 options, it's benefiting the environment, but it's also benefiting their own pockets as well.
Thanks, Enda. I'll hand it back to Brendan now just to wrap it up, and thanks viewers for joining us for the last hour.
Thanks very much there, Vivian. Indeed, look at it, Neil. I suppose thanks again to Cathal, Gabriel, and Enda there for sharing their presentation with us and indeed their information. And indeed, thanks to you, Vivian, there for facilitating the questions and answers here tonight. And most importantly, look at thanks to you at home this evening for sticking with us and indeed engaging with us throughout the night. From our survey there, 85% of you said that you will or intend to use protected urea in 2024. So that's certainly a positive impact that this technology will have in the future. And 54% you said you're still not using the low emission, but perhaps that might change as time goes on. We hope you found this beneficial this evening, and indeed we'll get this webinar recorded and uploaded onto the Teagasc Mayo YouTube channel in the coming days, so keep an eye out for that. All that's left for me to say is that we'll be here again next week for the second episode in this series, where my colleague John Walsh from Teagasc Ballina and Damien Costello from Teagasc Athenry will talk to us about winter flock management and indeed giving some tips also on upcoming lambing seasons, which isn't that far away for sheep farmers. So obviously it depends on when your system starts. So that's all happening next week at the same time, next Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. using the same link. And with that, it's good night from us all here in Teagasc and Mayo, and we'll see you all again next week. Good night, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice.
Thanks, Brendan.